to you by Crowcast. Obviously, not a happy weekend wrap this week, but nevertheless, lots to talk about. I'm sure that myself and the rest of the Crowcast crew and everyone in the audience will have tons to say about the terrible loss this week. So without any further ado, why don't we just crack straight in, shall we? Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap. Terrible weekend for the Adelaide Crows, but never mind, we're still here and we're still kicking along. So joining me tonight, welcome back, Macca. How you going, Mac?
Yeah, no, as I said to you off air, I've got shingles at the moment, but, that's where you sent these rotten little things to try us and we'll just box on.
That's right. Never mind. So you'll be nice and grumpy then tonight.
No, I'm not grumpy. I was bloody grumpy on Friday night.
Friday night was terrible. Mate, I haven't seen us play that bad or get coached that bad for a long time. But anyway, let's not jump the gun. G'day to everyone who's joined us on Discord in the live audience there. We've got a good, 8 there, and I'm sure there'll be more. Don't forget, we are interactive, so if you've got something to say, and I'm sure there'll be one or two that'll have something to say, Macca, tonight, stick your virtual hand up in the live studio audience, and we'll be happy to bring you on. Of course, there's plenty of chat going in the live show chat channel, as well as on YouTube, so get around it, and thanks to everyone who has joined us. Right, no Nikki this week. She was one of the lucky ones, Mac, and didn't actually watch the game on Friday night, so she didn't think her opinion would be valid. Well, we did watch the game, and I think she was the lucky one.
Yes, yeah, it is possibly the most horrible game I've watched. Well, it is the most horrible game I've watched from the Crows team for many a long time. You did make an opening remark about also rotten coaching, and we'll obviously delve into that too, because I totally agree with you. It was a poorly played, poorly coached effort, and
it was
so
horrific.
bad. You couldn't have done it if you tried, even if we were trying.
Yeah, it was horrific. But Macca, as always, before we get into the Crows-related stuff, we do like to give you your 15 minutes of fame.
Let's
and
do it.
Why should today be any different? So let's just cook into Macca's 15 minutes of fame. Macca's beloved weekend results wrap up. Don't blame me, you asked for it. Macca, let's get into it. So we had, apart from our stupid game, we had the Power getting shown up again for the pretenders that they are. The Power 8-7-55 to the Demons 12-14, 86, a margin in the end of 31 points to the D's.
Well, as you quite rightly said, pretenders, not contenders. And you might remember Kenny making a remark at the beginning of the year, "We're coming."
Yeah.
And I think he may well have been when he said it.
Family show, mate. Come on. Family show.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's the only thing that has been true about it. He is. Coming back to the game, Melbourne were just too classy, and it just showed that Port they're not a bad side, but they just don't have those really outstanding classy players. They don't have a Petrarca, or they don't have a Gorn, or an Oliver, or like that. That class of player. And poor Alia, the poor bastard, he was doing well at centre back, so he got sent into the ruck and he got sent to centre half forward, and I thought, that was coaching at its worst. I thought. One thing I was really sad about was Butters because I do like him as a player, and
Yeah,
you hate to see a good player like that go down, and I
yeah.
wish him a quick recovery.
I
But
think,
you
is it
know,
only
well,
meniscus, or it's not an ACL, is it? It's only 4 to 6 weeks, they said.
it's been cut back to that, has it? I thought it was a PCL, but you're probably right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
PCLs these days are about 6 weeks.
well, that's what they were talking 6 weeks, but
Yeah, okay.
anyhow, I think Port had just got showed by Melbourne, because don't forget Melbourne were visiting. Port had the home ground. They all held up their bloody scarves and sang their songs, but they're not quite there. They're just not there, and I don't think they will get there because
I,
they got
I,
some old players.
I find your love for the power touching, Mac. I really do.
Yes.
All right, the next game. Hawthorn showing why they will be our main contenders for pick 2. Going down in a screaming heap against Freo. Freo 16-12-108 to Hawthorn 6-10-46, a margin of just over 10 goals to the Dockers.
Look, I swear you're reading my opening lines every time. That's exactly what's
Sorry,
written
mate.
down here.
Great minds
Yeah,
think
and
alike.
but you can smell a bit of tanking going here, surely. Or is it the indecision between who's coach and who isn't coach? I don't know, but they were terrible. I mean, when you get a team like Fremantle making you look stupid, when they're playing down in Tasmania where they've never gone well before, I think it was a great effort by Hawthorn to tank as well as they did. Nothing much. Nothing much to say about Hawthorn to like. The only thing I did like about them was they picked a lad up in the pre-season draft who played very well. Got his name at the moment, but he was probably one of their highlights. But no, the Fremantle Rucks and Rovers, Fife, Monday, and Sarong, far too good, far too good.
Yep.
So nothing to like about Hawthorn, nothing.
No, nothing at all. At all for them to be down in 7th spot either. The Cats,
One thing about another knee, young Jaff's knee, he went off with. I do hope he isn't too badly hurt because I do like watching him play.
Yeah, no, don't like to see anyone get injured, actually. And just on the Hawthorn game too, if anyone gets a chance, get on one of the socials and search up Poppy's hanger in the SANFL. Hawthorn could have done with a bit of that. Actually, it took an absolute belting marker in the sample for Norwood on the weekend. So people, if they're interested, go and hunt that up on socials. It's fantastic. All right, we have Geelong 10-10-72, Carlton 5-14-44, a margin there of 26. Pretty average game. Workmanlike by the Cats. Not much to talk about there, really.
You are reading my lines. I just said terribly scrappy game, and
Horrible.
very few highlights, plenty of lowlights. Carlton, I think, was at 112 or 113 at one stage.
Yeah, stupid.
Carlton's defence is pretty good. They went but really at the end of the day, unless your name started with W, Walsh and Wiedering, there wasn't much to like about Carlton at all. And as you said, Geelong, there wasn't much to really like about them. They just did what they had to do, and not much of a game.
Yeah, when you spend so much money on top-end players as Carlton have, you end up getting found out for depth, and I reckon that's where they're at the moment. Their fringe players, their last 10 or 12 on their list are no good whatsoever, and it's always left to too few in that team, in my opinion.
Very much so.
All right, we had a bit of an upset. Next, the Saints, after being written off after their lacklustre game a couple of weeks ago, just come storming back now. 32-point winners over the Lions, 14-11-95 to Brisbane, 8-15-63. The Lions would be terribly disappointed with that.
Massively so. If I remember right, it wasn't us who touched up St Kilda?
Yep. No, we didn't touch them up. We came back from the dead, remember?
Well, I meant by that we beat them.
Yeah.
But I say Kilda, they were never going to lose this game. Well, it was a bit of a contest up until half time, and again, sadly, another ACL in this game, Hipwood.
Yep.
And but I thought
that's a blow to them too. That's a blow to them.
Pardon?
That's a big blow to Hipwood.
Very much so, because they had the two tools up there with Hipwood there, which makes it very difficult to defend. But when there's only one, you can do that a lot better.
Yeah.
But I thought St Kilda played very high pressure footy, and they dominated the midfield. Steele was outstanding. Dunstan, who that the ACL stopped that trade, which would have got us pick 2. And Dunstan would have been good for us because he is playing fantastic football at the moment.
Yes.
And as I said, Brisbane matched them for a half, but they got really touched up in the second half. And I think pathetically so. But given them the fact they're playing for a top 4 spot. And I thought they were very, very disappointing, really, in the long run. And it's strange at the moment. Teams that can have the opportunity perhaps to seal up a top 4 spot
or a top 8 spot. Yep.
Yeah, they just fail every time if it's too much of a task.
I just think it shows how close the competition is, and even though we're only a couple of weeks out from the bye, I think teams are really struggling. We had Chris Scott come out whinging about the length of the game. He can piss off with that, but I think it is indicative of the fact that teams at this point in the season really go into injury management mode, and the injury sheet often doesn't tell the full story. There's blokes carrying niggles and blokes that are just a bit heavy-legged, and it does show up in games like this, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. It is a long season because last year was only a 17 game season and broken up into 2 stages, and on top of that they were shorter quarters, and now we're back to what we normally used to play, and perhaps some of the players are not quite as prepared as they should be.
Stupid call by Chris Scott. I don't want to go back to bloody 10-goal games every week, which was basically the norm last year because of the shorter quarters. I don't want that.
No, because what actually tends to happen is with the longer quarters, there's usually quite a few goals scored in that because players are tired, defenders are tired, and all of a sudden you get some goals scored. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. The Giants squandering an opportunity to get into that top 8, going down by a point to a very gallant Suns team. Giants 9-10-64 to the Suns 10-5-65.
Yep, and unfortunately another ACL with Greenwood, who went down in the first minute of play with it. Played at bloody Ballarat, of all places, freezing cold. Apparently I think it was about 6 degrees. And the wind was so bloody strong, blowing across the ground. They only played in a sliver of the oval, just on one, if you look at it long ways, on one half of the oval. Yeah. And it made it into a pretty drab-looking game. But I will say this, the Gold Coast all of a sudden have found some fight. GWS, as always, have got so much talent, but they tend to squander. Lockie Whitfield going down was a real blow for them. And it is. Bloody dream team.
He's so important to them, Macca, Whitfield.
Well, the ball in hand with Whitfield is probably the best thing you can have in your team because he generally finds a player or sets up a decent bit of play. So that is a bit of an excuse. But I have to say, looking at the Gold Coast, they have become a lot more desperate than they have been. At times when we were really slagging them early in the year, they looked like they were just going through the motions. And Pete Miller, he just keeps going. He's like a bloody machine. Lukosius, he's definitely worth having a crack at. I wouldn't worry about Rankin, but Lukosius had played very well. But, yeah, it was an upset, but at the end of the day, I didn't think GWS played as well as they could have or should have, and I thought that Gold Coast used the ball a little bit better than they did.
I'll tell you what, Mac, you're a betting man, and if the Suns win a couple more, I would be putting a lazy 20 on Took Miller for the Chaz.
I think he's got to be a great... he just keeps knocking up the points. And
they've just got to win enough games for him.
Yeah, so that they can get 3s instead of 2s.
Yep.
Good point.
Parrish obviously is a go, Bontempelli, a few others, but Took Miller's flown under a lot of people's radars. He just keeps dominating for that team. And if they, as I said, if they win a couple more and sort of break even or thereabouts, I reckon he's a smoke. He's certainly top three in my view.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yep. Now we had another upset of sorts. The Sydney Swans you've got to hand it to the Swans. They just keep turning up, don't they? 11-13-79 to the Bulldogs 8-12-60, a margin in the end of 19 points. And we all thought the Swans were going to be the most vulnerable team in the 8. Well, it hasn't turned out that way, has it?
No, it hasn't. And I must admit, I think this was probably the most watchable game of all the games played over the weekend. In terms of the quality of football that was played, two very good quality teams. They played slightly differently. The Dogs, a lot of handball, a lot of lateral movement, whereas the Swans were very, very hard running and tried to get the ball moving into their forward lines as quickly as possible. Yep. So it was a bit of a contrast in the way that they played the game, and it did work out that on the day, their method worked a little bit better. The Dogs were handicapped by the lack of their full forward. I've just forgotten his name.
Norton.
The high flyer. Norton, yeah. No Norton, and could have been the difference between the two sides if he'd played, but he wasn't there. So
I don't think he's a match winner, though, Mac. I thought Western Bulldogs would dominate this game through the midfield, but I tell you what, the Sydney Swans, even though they're young to some extent, they still have a very, very experienced midfield with Parker and JPK and those blokes, and talent around the edges with Heaney, etc. And they're handling their I wouldn't even call it a rebuild, but just maybe a rejuvenation, really, really well up there, in my opinion.
Well, you described it perfectly. When we were talking earlier, and you actually corrected me at one stage there, that when I was talking about rebuilding, you said they've still got a lot of experienced players. Well, you are right, and they're actually, it is a rejuvenation rather than a rebuild, and it's working like a charm because they played fantastic football today against a team that is a good footy team, and as I said, I enjoyed the game thoroughly. Yeah. Every time that the Dogs looked like making a charge at the Sydney, they were good enough to absorb that, and maybe they might have a goal or two kicked against them. They'd come back and they'd get a goal or two themselves. And really, Bulldogs were never going to win it. That Sydney just always had their measure. It was a great game to watch. And I know that there's been word that we're interested in trying to get Jordan Dawson. Christ, I'd love to get hold of the ball. I mean, he's playing a halfback, and he kicked 3 goals himself.
Yeah. Don't know whether it's doable, but I'd love to have him. And Richmond are just about done. Are we calling it on Richmond? I reckon they're just about done. The Pies getting up by 16 points, 13-9-87 to Richmond 11-5-71. Are they done, Mac?
Absolutely done. This. You can make excuses every week, and Harbutt comes out and he's always got some pathetic little excuse. And they had Collingwood at their mercy, but in the last quarter, Collingwood have kicked 7 goals to 1. Run all over them. Which, fortunately for me, was the only quarter of that game I really got a clear look at. And I was barracking for Collingwood because I'm very anti-Richmond, and because what they did in 2017 and onwards. They've had their turn, and I think their turn has come and gone, and I think the dynasty is over.
Yeah, I'm pretty much prepared to call it. The only caveat, I guess, is that a lot of the teams around that 7th and 8th spot aren't making every post a winner at the moment. GWS are failing me. I think Essendon are the ones. I really think that they'll end up in the 8, and Freo are the other ones, I think.
Well, I was thinking to myself after the weekend, after our team, we're in the middle of a rebuild, and they are in the middle of a rebuild, but they are so far, they're light years in front of us with their rebuild when you look at their team. Yeah. Light years.
Yeah, and, well, they probably started a year or two ahead of us too, Mac, so...
They did.
Fair enough. Looking at the ladder, Melbourne stay on top, 52 points, a game clear of Western Bulldogs and Geelong on 48 points. Brisbane in the 4 on 44, Port 5th on 44, Sydney alone on 40 in 6, Fremantle and West Coast Eagles on 32 in the 8. West Coast obviously playing as we speak. St Kilda out of the 8 on 32 points, but certainly coming home strong. GWS faltering on 30. Essendon, my team, on the rise, I reckon, 28 points, but what's that, a game short of the 8. Richmond also on 28, but heading the other way in 12th spot. Carlton not looking like it on 24 points, along with the Suns, who are improving. Collingwood with a good win, get above us on 20 points. We're on 16th on 20. Hawthorn on 16 points in 17th. And North, of course, playing at the moment too on 10 points, likely to stay on 10. Obviously, we need to do something about Hawthorn, Macca, if we're going to be any chance of Mr. Horn.
Exactly, but how the hell are we going to do it? Because I'm sure they've got the same idea.
Oh, no doubt. We won't finish last, but Hawthorn are the ones. I did a ladder predictor today, and I still have us finishing around about 14th. And that's only with 2 more wins for the season, which I think we'll get. So I think we'll be picked 3 to 5 anyway.
I think you are right, actually.
All right. Okie doke. So, Mac, why don't we just quickly start talking about the Adelaide Essendon game. Of course, it was Adelaide 2 goals, 9-21, our lowest ever score, Mac. Our lowest ever score. Came from nowhere. Essendon 11-18, 84. Win by 63. Probably should have won by more. We pretty much locked them down for a half before we got Jacob playing that way, and Essendon just ran all over the top of us. Just give me your initial thoughts. But before you do, Mac, just a reminder, we've got cast of thousands in the live audience tonight, so really would love your interaction. So if anyone's got anything they'd like to say, please stick your hand up and we will definitely have you on tonight, because I imagine there'd be a few people with a point of view to share. But Mac, in the meantime, your thoughts, mate.
Well, I'll start off with selection. When I looked at the forward line, I thought to myself, on paper, that is possibly one of the worst forward lines I've ever seen an AFL team field. Yep. I just couldn't see how we were going to get goals. That was the first thing. Secondly, I still thought, but the one thing about this team, its brand has been that it has 100% go, and it tries to move the ball quickly and tries to get in there, and maybe we'll get a few goals here and there, but we won't win.
Yep.
But then when the game started, it looked as if we thought we were Geelong, where we hold possession of the ball and we kick backwards and go sideways and we go nowhere, and everything gets all crowded up forward and you've got no chance of getting the ball out. And I thought to myself, where did this game plan come from? This is not how we've been playing.
Bloody terrible, Macca, wasn't it?
Well, it was a disgrace. And I kept thinking, you can't keep playing like this because we're not talented enough. We're not qualified to do it. This is not how we play. And somebody says Nick was just limiting the damage. I'd rather have more damage and play in a style that we intend to play in the long term, because this was just rubbish. It was just absolute rubbish.
I think you're right, Mac, and we'll look at team lineups in a second. But I think you're right. It started at selection. It was an extremely strange selection, but then to go in against a team who were at that stage only one above us on the table, and basically concede that the only way we were going to have a chance was to basically shut the game down and keep the ball out of their hands. I think, as a playing group, how can you buy in to that sort of a game plan? How can you buy into your coach or the coaching group basically saying, all right, we're going to play keepings off, because basically if Essendon get the ball in hand, we can't keep up with them. But how's the team going to buy into that? They're not, are they?
And they didn't.
No,
That's the whole point.
They didn't. Nix is going on about in the presser about, I don't know where the lack of effort came from and all the rest of it. It came from a lack of engagement. And the lack of engagement came from the fact that they instigated a game plan that the players didn't agree with, in my opinion. Why wouldn't you let our boys just go out and play instead of implementing a game plan that was so defensive? At no stage in that first quarter did we show any intent to score whatsoever. The forward line were left on a hiding to nothing, because any time we did transition the ball, it was back to the old kick it high and long into the forward 50, about 40 metres out, and let Essendon just crash the pack. Like, it was... There was no part of the game at all that was good. No part of the game.
Well, we've covered selection, no good. Game plan, no good. Performance, no good. There was nothing. Numerically, it's the worst game that a Crows team has ever played, and it possibly is the worst game that a Crows team has ever played. It was terrible. Before we didn't have a goal till about the 20-minute mark of the second quarter, and I actually was thinking we might not get one all game the way we're playing. And the way that game plan we're playing wasn't designed to score. It was designed just to lose by less.
You're right. At no stage did we try to kick the ball aggressive. I didn't mind if they wanted to use a kick mark game plan. But the problem was the kick mark game plan was kick it side to side until we eventually turn it over and everyone's out of position. There was no attempt at any stage to use the corridor. There was no attempt at any stage to kick 45s. There was no attempt at any stage to try and be aggressive. It was just switch. Bad disposal, because everyone's so bored shitless that their disposal just went off, and Essendon just romp it in. Anyway, look, 1990, I see your hand there. Just before we get to you, mate, let's just quickly run through selection, because it was baffling in my view. We had Luke Brown and Taylor Walker out injured, and my first thought when Taylor Walker was ruled out was that Darcy Fogarty was finally going to get the keys, and didn't even that wasn't even considered according to the emergencies. First of all, they left Billy Frampton in, but then they've, out of the blue, picked Elliot Himmelberg. So all of a sudden we've got three blokes, 195 or above up forward, making us extremely slow up forward, and lacking any sort of cohesion whatsoever. We bring in Lockie Murphy, who had a good tackling game in the SANFL the week before, but I don't think he's the type of player that can come back in after 1 week. And we've had a couple of young lads in the twos, Mac, in Gallant and Cook, who've been playing well for weeks now. And we chose the midget who likes to play tall. And Ben Davis out of nowhere, who they've been playing off half-back, and who they played off half-back when he came on in place of Duday, who was nowhere near the pace of it, and was an absolute token waste of a selection, because we won't see Ben Davis again.
So, you're probably right. I just couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand any of the selection whatsoever. And, I looked at the team and you just knew it was going to get a hiding, but we didn't know it was going to change its game plan as well.
Yeah. No, so, there was no rhyme or reason for the selections. I couldn't make sense. We're playing at Marvel Stadium, which is a fast track. Yes, Essendon have good tools in defence, but they've got to match up against us. We're responsible for how we look up forward, and I felt it was an opportunity to bring in at least one of the two young lads in Gallant or Cook, and also to allow Fogarty the opportunity to play that hit up forward role that Tex has been playing all season. Why they kept Billy Frampton in, I have no idea. Now, Billy may have taken a couple of marks eventually, but by God, he gets hustled and bustled out of position a hell of a lot. And where we needed him to take marks, he just wasn't anywhere near it. So I'm not a fan of Billy, unfortunately.
I hate him. I don't want him out there at all. I don't mean personally to hate him, but I just don't like him being picked. He played loose in defence and picked up Billy the Goose kicks down and back in defence without an opponent and made it look better. But he's one of those unfortunate players that he really can dominate in the SANFL and he cannot take the next step up to the AFL. Certainly on what we've seen so far, he's never ever said, I am an A grader.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mac. I think that's exactly where he sits, because the reason is you don't ever see him double grab a mark in the twos. He is strong at the ball. He's confident. He's confident with his kicking. But when he gets to AFL level, I don't know whether it's nerves. I don't know whether it's the additional pressure. I'm not quite sure. But he double takes everything. His kicking is atrocious. And he doesn't look like someone who wants ball in hand having a shot at goal. So him being up there as a forward with that sort of mindset is just pointless. And I'm with you. I don't like him in the team.
Have you ever watched him in the SAFL? He generally takes a mark single grab.
Yeah, that's what I said. He never double grabs in the twos.
And then he comes up the AFL and he never he can't take a single grab.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether he fits himself or what.
Well, I think it's a confidence thing. I think he lacks confidence at AFL level. And that's all well and good, but he's been in the system now for 6 years? And, Matthew James on YouTube says he wasn't our worst. He definitely wasn't our worst. But in terms of how we looked up forward, I don't think Billy's the answer. As it turned out, we didn't have Elliott up forward because he was laid out through illness. But our forward line, irrespective, looked very strange. I mean, we've got Berry, Tilthorpe and Frampton, along with Murphy, Schoenberg and McHenry. It's just a nothing forward line. And unfortunately, from Murphy and McHenry, and even Berry for that matter, we didn't get the forward pressure. But I'm willing to forgive the small forwards for that lack of inside 50 tackling number that we'll see in a minute, because our entries didn't really penetrate beyond about 45 metres anyway, and it's very hard to defend when your forward 50 entries are so shallow.
Well, we only had half the number of entries that they did for a start, so that supports what you're saying. Then on top of that, the entries were very, very poor. They were very poorly directed in the majority. So the stats of our little guys were terrible, actually. Very, very poor. But then you have to take into account all those other factors. I still think they could have been better, but their opportunities weren't great.
Yeah, made all the more difficult by Tom Day going down with what turned out to be concussion after that brave attempt at a spoil. I've got to take exception with the commentary that was questioning whether it was quote-unquote smart to go back for the flight of the ball. He obviously impacted the contest. If he had pulled out of that contest, you would not have heard the end of it. And the simple fact is that's footy courage, and that's what we expect from our players. And Tom Duday never ever backs out. And any commentator that thinks it was a dumb thing for him to go back and try and impact the contest has forgotten what it's like to play football, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, look, I've done it, Fiend, and I got knocked out as well. So I don't think it is a smart thing to do, quite frankly, because you're not really going to achieve much out of it other than getting hurt. And,
well, he impacted the contest, Macca, because McDonald Tip and Woody didn't take the mark. While
that's true, if he hadn't have hurt himself and gone off the ground, he would have impacted a lot more contests. And by what he was doing, I thought there was only one possible result, and that was he was going to get smashed, and he did.
No, I would never bag a bloke for going back with the flight of the ball.
I'm not bagging him.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not. It's
insane courage, and as I said, I've done it, but I did it once and I got killed. I never did it again after that.
Yeah. Razor makes a really good point in the chat. we're talking in hindsight. In the heat of the moment, Tom Duday and 99% of AFL players will always try to make that contest, and that's the end of it. And it's not even a conversation. Not even a conversation about whether it's a smart or a dumb thing, because I reckon next time he plays, if he's in that situation again, he'll do it again. All right, let's go to a couple of our listeners. So if anyone wants to have their say, now's the chance. And we've got 1990 Crow here, who I'll just invite into the Crowcast studio. How you going, 1990?
Thanks, Phoenix. How you going? You going, Macca?
Good to hear you. Okay, on again, mate. You've always got some good stuff to tell us.
Oh, it was a fantastic game to watch, wasn't it? I went to the game Friday night, all excited after having a pretty shitty week at work, and got there and got all ready to go. And quickly in the first half of the first quarter, I was looking around and everyone was going, "What are we watching? This is absolute garbage." Anyway, so Matthew Nicks, I think I've been saying all season that we're just going to be patient. It's more the squad than it's him. But I think Friday night was probably the first time I truly think I had some question marks over what I was watching. I think Thursday night selection was exceedingly poor. You've already gone through. But then, the game style that we actually went with Friday night was, never a chance of scoring a goal. And as the game wore on, it just got worse and worse. You could see the players losing confidence. And the one thing that really annoyed me was seeing Keys, Sloan, and Ladd for 95% of the centre clearances, and having Sam Barry, McHenry, and Scholberg starting at half forward.
Oh, Shuey was there for a bit because he was running with Parrish, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I was going to say you're right on the others, but Shuey, he actually attended a lot of them because he was running with Parry, and he actually did a very good job on him. I'm trying to think what his numbers were in the second half. They were very, very poor in the second half, in particular. And I give Shuey the honours because he himself had 20 possessions, and Parrish only had 19, and then Parrish has been knocking up 30. So I think Schoenberg, he was in the middle quite a bit, and I thought he had a great game, and he was very high up in our best. But you're right about the others. They never got a look in. I like you, am sick and tired of seeing that same midfield three, which is Keys, Sloaney, and the captain. And the captain doesn't seem to get the ball too much. I just don't. He worries me actually.
I think with Rory Sloan I think it's really selfish what's happening, to be honest. I think he's got an injury that's clearly hampering him.
I agree with you, mate. 100% agree with you on that one.
He needs to go off to surgery now.
Yeah, he's no good. And Benny Keys is labouring now as well. He's lost a little bit of zip. He's obviously got a hand injury as well.
Yep.
And, what is the point? What is the point in Sam Berry languishing down at full forward for 95% of the game?
Yeah, I don't get it.
When he's clearly going to be one of our standout midfielders for that. Now, he may not have a tank, but can we, for the love of God, rotate him through some centre clearance work, please? Even if he doesn't stay on the ball, long in general play, can we get him into the centre a bit, for God's sake?
As for individuals, I think up forward, Blind Freddie could see that group of six was not going to kick more than 2 goals.
It was horrific.
Even when we saw Himmelberg go out before the game, I thought, that might actually improve our chances. But that's in no disrespect to Himmelberg. But for Fogarty, I think his form obviously wasn't great, and that was 50-50 on whether he should be dropped. But bringing in Himmelberg for him, or not bringing in Darcy because he was in the sample last week, I don't think that was the right decision. You look at our forward craft over the last couple of months, our best group has been Walker, Phil Thorpe and Fogarty.
Yep.
And we really missed that lead up forward on the weekend. So that was an error in my book, even if he's not in great form. But
tell me, 1990. Why do you sign a bloke for another 2 years and then proceed not to play him?
I don't have an answer for you, Phoenix. I think there's obviously stuff that they're working with Darcy, and they're both parties are aware of. But for whatever reason, he doesn't even seem to play full forward when he goes back to the SANFL, which is going to be his position at AFL level if he's going to make it. So let's at least be consistent with where these guys are going if they're going to go back to the SANFL. But if you're not going to play him, I'm not quite sure what happened. Why did we sign him?
Yeah. Rabbit saying Fogarty's not a full forward. It doesn't matter. He's a like-for-like replacement for Tex. And whether you agree with him being in the squad or not, the fact is that they've just signed him for 2 years. So they obviously see him in our squad. And therefore, if he's in our squad, then he must play in the position that most suits him. And the position that most suits him is that hit-up forward role that Tex has been playing for the last 6 to 8 weeks. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I totally agree that with both of you that he should have been playing, and because it's about structure. And when you looked at the reason why you could see that we weren't going to kick any goals, it was because of the lack of structure. Whereas if you've got we look at it for Hampton up there, and what else? Yeah. What else? I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. At least you need another bigger body, at least doing something up there. And I know his form hasn't been great, but as Fiend said, our best performances have been with Phil Thorpe, Walker, and what's his name?
The one we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, Fogarty. I've got his bloody name. I've got who we're talking about now. Yeah, but it is those three. When you've got those three together, it is that structure that works a lot better. And it doesn't mean that all three are going to all play well, but one of them will, and that's the whole point.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, 1990?
Final thoughts. I think the other thing that was questionable was, I've said it a number of times, but David McKay getting selected over Will Hamill again. One's our future, one isn't. Let's get some gains into the guys that in 2 seasons' time might actually take us forward. Mm-hmm. The back pocket, we didn't actually pick a back pocket to replace Luke Brown. So we had a bunch of guys that don't really know how to play on small forwards. And the other one was giving the ball 19 times to Jake Kelly and expecting good things to happen.
Very good point. I mean, he actually plays quite well, Kelly, other than one factor. When you give the ball to him, the brain processes it takes about 30 seconds to decide what he's going to do with it.
Then he just kicks it sideways.
Yeah, and all opportunities are covered by then. So
opposition teams, they let him get the ball because they know what's going to happen.
I can't wait to see Kelly's metres gained because it could actually be negative. Anyway, thanks, thanks, mate. Always good to hear from you. I'll kick you back to the audience, and we'll just invite Rabbit in here. Rabbit is also an enthusiastic contributor. Macca, Rabbit, how you going, mate?
Yes. Welcome, Rabbit.
Not bad, fellas. How are you?
Good. You might have to just turn yourself up a little bit there, mate, or speak louder, or pretend you're watching the Crows and yell.
Can you hear me better now?
Nope.
You're very quiet, mate.
Maybe back to the audience. I'll turn the volume up.
All right, no worries. Stick your hand up when you're good. All right, Macca. Let's have a look at some head-to-heads, I think, because, it's going to be hard to make anything out of this mess. But let's see what we can do. All right. Hang on, we've got some bloody music going on here. Oh. Right. Okay, so disposals. Surprisingly, given how much we kicked the ball in the back half, we got done by 50 in disposals, 381 to 330. Kicks 224 to 208. Handballs 157 to 122. Inside 50s, that is disgusting. 61 to 31, and I think was it 11 inside 50s to half time?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. Disposal efficiency, who gives a rat's ass? Because, it's easy to have disposal efficiency when you're just chipping it around in the back half without anyone pushing up on you. Essendon just sat back and waited. They just... Once they worked out what we were doing, it took Benny Rutten a quarter, I think, to work out what we were trying to do. After that, it was just like, oh, whatever. We'll let them kick it around for a little while, and then we'll just wait for them to turn it over.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to zip through these, Mac, because there's not much point in dwelling on them. We all saw the game. Hit-outs, 43 to 26. I didn't think Riley O'Brien had that much of an impact, even though he won the hit-outs.
No, he didn't.
Clearances, Essendon's way, 36 to 30, including 9 to 6 in the centre and 27-24 around stoppage. Contested possession, we were outclassed there, 2 by 20, 124 to 104. Uncontested possession, surprisingly again, 247 to 216, so it just shows how much of a cliff we fell off after half-time. Turnovers 45 to 58, and I reckon each of our 58 turnovers resulted in a score just about. Marks 112 to 108, marks inside 50. Sad indictment given our selection strategy. Only 2 marks inside 50 for the game. Mac? Essendon 13 marks inside 50 for the game. Contested
2.
marks 6, 2 for the match.
Jesus.
And when we get to the individuals, we'll probably find out that they were both small blokes. Contested marks 16 to 7 in Essendon's favour. What else have we got here? Tackles 57 to 45. Tackles inside 50, 3 for the match. Mac, 3 tackles inside 50 for the match versus 20 to Essendon.
Well, every stat says the one same thing, that it was an embarrassing performance, and it actually has done. I think it's done the club a lot of harm, actually, because we won't get invited to be on a Thursday night, a Friday night, or a Saturday night for a long, long time. We're going to be 440s and 12-15s and all that sort of stuff, because...
Do we really care about that shit, though? We'll get Friday night games back because we can pack out Footy Park or Adelaide Oval, whatever. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about... why they trot that rubbish out.
But it does relate to sponsors. Sponsors like to see their money going into primetime TV, and
Mac,
that's why.
do you reckon we're struggling with sponsors?
I think every club would like more money. There's no question about that.
Oh, well, yeah, everyone would love more money, but like...
Well, given the fact we would like to build a new facility, we would like as much money as possible.
I think what you're talking about is first world problems. The actual problem is what possessed our coaching staff to put that out. What can we try and work out what possessed our coaching staff to put that out?
Well, that's what I really, really can't understand, because you'd have to think that they were tanking, because if they're not, they weren't tanking. They are stupid. There's only
PJ Crows, who I suspect is actually club president John Olsen in disguise. he reckons they're tanking. Anyway, we got Rabbit back. How you going, mate?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, mate.
How you going?
Not too bad. I know I've dumped on the talls recently. The last few weeks, I thought I'd dump on the smalls this time.
Okay.
Good on you.
It's just a broad dumping.
Pretty much. I mean, I'll just start off with what I thought was a great stat. At quarter time, Ned McHenry, Sam Berry, and Will Hamill had 4 disposals and 3 turnovers between them.
Yep. Solid.
That's not great. Just looking at Will Hamill, I'm not sure where this is going. I don't know. 1990 thinks he's the future over David McKay. I don't think either of them are the future. I see Will Hamill, and back in his first season, he was dynamic. He would run forward, whereas no one else was running. but he would turn the ball over a lot. And I was willing to give him some leeway because I thought, well, nobody on the team is running. Of course, it's going to turn over. But even now, his turnovers are still. He looks like a turnover merchant to me, and I think he's a problem.
The only thing I'd say to that, Rabbit, and I don't disagree with you, but we had another lad a few years ago like that called Marty Matner, and once he got some solid coaching and played within his limitations, he turned into a very good player for Sydney, and I'm not so worried about Will's propensity to turn it over. What I'm actually worried about is the fact that as soon as someone touches him, he turns into a rag doll. The lad has to get stronger. He has to get stronger, or else he will end up retiring from the game early with concussions. He's just too light at the moment.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. He just gets pushed off the ball so easily. I mean, he's 186. It was almost the same height as Duday, yet he just gets brushed off by the smalls.
Yeah,
wasn't great to see. I like Chase Jones' defense. I know we've talked about that before. I think he's our long-term replacement for Luke Brown. The other issue I've got is Ned McHenry. I don't see a footballer in him. I know some people think they see something in him, but at halftime I saw somebody's lost child who had made their way onto the field in replica gear. He is so small. This is his third year in, and he looks smaller in every single way than Luke Pedler and Sam Berry. This was the sort of game that should have suited him. You know, it was, I don't know how damp it was, but everybody was fumbling. It should have suited him, and he was nowhere and nothing. 2 tackles for the game. I don't see him being anything more than a 70-game player who gets passed by when we get some real players in.
Well, Rabbit, I think you might be well right, because I'm one of the ones that couldn't see a footballer in him last year. I thought I was seeing a footballer in him in some games earlier this year, but his performance on the weekend was atrocious. He was pretty close to Wog, which is worst on ground. And you think he would perform so poorly, you wondered why he was out there.
I'm not willing to jump on Ned just yet, because I feel like he was a victim of the mess that was our transition. It felt like the game was piggy in the middle all game, and we were always a step behind. We were always out of position. We weren't being proactive in terms of the options that we were offering, and I feel like Ned found himself in no man's land a lot of the time. I think there's a small forward opportunity for Ned in the long term, to some degree. I'm not sold on him yet by any stretch, but there are others that I'm more concerned about, and the one that I'm really concerned about is James Rowe. It's a romantic story, and he started with a bang, and he does it right at Adelaide Oval in front of the adoring crowds. But there have been too many games this year for a bloke who, let's face it, has to make every post a winner. There's been too many games where he is just absolutely nowhere as a small forward. Nowhere.
Well, the interesting thing is that as a small forward, he had 13 disposals on the weekend, and he got most of them around the centre.
Exactly.
And possibly even on the other side of centre. I don't remember him getting very many, if any, in the forward line.
And that's my point. And Ned's a bit the same, but I think of the two of them, I'm happier or less unhappy with McHenry than I am with Rowe, because Rowe's in the team as a small forward, and at the end of the day, we were bombing into tools for the 30 odd times that we actually got it in there, and I don't think I saw Rowe crumb it once, and that's his job. That's his primary KPI. So I hear what you're saying, Rabbit, about McHenry. I'm still on the fence a little bit. Probably leaning towards maybe not, but I'm more concerned about Jimmy Rowe at this stage.
Yeah, Rowe seems to do his best work up the ground. He's a lot better in traffic than McHenry has ever been. He seems to be able to have that vision to be able to step through the traffic and put the next pass down The problem is, I don't think he's fast enough for that to be a long-term career option.
That's right.
And if he's not able to do that, and if he's not fast enough or crumbing well enough in the forward line, it's where does he go?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Very good point, because he definitely does his best work further up the ground, and he's once the ball is in his hand, up forward, he generally does something with it. There's no doubt about that. But if he is going to become a permanent fixture in our side, he will have to, I still think he's got a little bit of puppy fat around the middle. He's got a little harden up a bit with a bit of weight, and he's also got to do a lot of speed running over the summer so that he can move much more quickly, and then play his role up forward and do it properly, because at the moment, he won't last long if he's going to play it as he is at the moment.
100%, Macca.
Yeah, I agree.
100%. It's a big worry in my opinion, that small forward spot actually at the moment. It's something we're going to have to fix.
I see worries all over the ground. So.
Oh yeah, of course. And look, let's not get too carried away here in terms of we are still dealing with a lot of youth. But by the same token, there are certain times I think where you can just see the writing on the wall for certain players, and I think what we're talking about here is definitely a few players where you can kind of. I'm willing to make a call on a couple of players fairly early out.
Yeah, but we can't front up with a forward line looking like that, because
That's exactly right, Mac.
I don't know. You could mess around with other combinations and probably come up with something that was half reasonable, but not that combination where you got Frampton as your main man and not much else.
Yeah. Rabbit, final thoughts, mate?
Yeah, it's just of the forward line. I think once Walker is out, it didn't really matter. I don't think we have, aside from Thilthorpe, who is sort of going through a little bit of a end of first season slump at the moment, I don't think there's anybody else we've got in the squad, aside from not having seen Cook or Gallant yet, that would have made a difference. As soon as Walker was out, that was it.
You're right.
Fogarty doesn't make a difference. I don't think Frampton makes a difference. Even if Himmelberger played, he doesn't make a difference. Our small forwards, I mean, are no good. The only one, the best of our small forwards, I think, is Murphy, and he was coming in off of one game, so he was never going to be there.
So my next line, he was the best of the smalls, and he hasn't got much match practice behind him, so that really is condemns the others a lot.
I would have liked to have seen them change it up a bit and chuck Ben Davis up forward for a little while. We seemed to stick with a game plan that was just so one-dimensional. Our forward line was completely one-dimensional. We lacked a hit-up target. Frampton was trying to provide that, but he's not a dynamic player, so when he does have ball in hand, it doesn't move on quickly. I would have liked to have seen Davis used a little bit up forward. But I don't disagree with you, mate. Once Tex was out, it was going to be a little bit of a bridge too far based on the selection of the team. I think we've spoken about Gallant and Cook, and Rabbit, I reckon, get hands on some SANFL footage, particularly over the last 3 or 4 weeks, because those lads are really starting to come on now.
Hopefully they get a go soon.
Yep. All right, thanks, mate. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rabbit. Cheers.
Don't forget, anyone else in the chat who wants to have their say throughout this little part of the discussion, please put your hand up. There's a little icon down the bottom just to raise your hand, and we will definitely have you on, because very interested to hear what other people have got to say, because, Macca, surprisingly, we're not always right. Have you can you get your head around that for a minute?
No, I'm staggered, mate. Have you been drinking?
Hey, have I been drinking?
Yeah.
I wish I had been drinking on Friday night. All right, look, I don't want to spend too much time on individuals because it was all played shit, really, but let's focus a little bit on a couple. Again, Rory Laird gets 33 touches. This week, though, only 215 metres gained for those 33 touches, 12 kicks, 21 handballs, 5 tackles, 6 clearances.
I don't know what people always say about him. You mentioned the distance most weeks, but in fairness to Lairdy, he gets tough balls. He doesn't get too many out in the open, and he's usually got people hanging off of him. So getting a kick away is pretty good for Lairdy because he there's no doubt about it. He and Keith are the two they target. Keith was actually heavily tagged this week too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing of it is, with a bloke like Laird, who for mine is far more dynamic as an inside ball winner than someone like Matt Crouch, for example. We need to put pace around him, and that's why I 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you that having three coalface players like Sloane, Laird, and Keys in the same rotation just doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe it's cattle. I don't know. But I think Berry is dynamic enough. You could play him as an outside midfielder at this stage of his career. He obviously will go and get his own ball, but he's also shown that he's not bad out in the open either. Harry Schoenberg, I think it was a good move, one of the few, to have Schoenberg trailing Parrish. I had Shuey as our best, or at least most effective player for the game. And he can do some damage on the outside as well. We've spoken about how creative he is, but there's not a lot else.
Well, actually, the move of Schoenberg onto Parrish was really actually a masterstroke because Parrish has been in outstanding form and is reading where the ball is, and he was taking Schoenberg to the ball.
Exactly.
To the point where Schoenberg at the end was getting so confident he started beating him to the ball. And I agree with you. In terms of effectiveness, he was probably our best player. But it would be a toss-up between him and Laird because Laird was all courage getting hard balls. Schoenberg was showing us what a class player he's going to be down the track. And he was probably the highlight of the game for me.
Yep. Well, it wasn't hard, but he definitely was. The fact that Jake Kelly got 19 touches is an indictment. I'm amazed that he got 300 metres gained. I don't know where that came from. We only had, 5 blokes over 20 touches. Schoenberg, Keys, who had 25. Seaman, who had... a lot of people think that I'm hard on Paul Seaman. But again, I just felt that was a nothing game by Paul Seaman.
I disagree. I thought that he can come off the ground and say at least he had a crack, mate. And there's a few of them that can't say that they did that. And he, I don't know but I'm sure that he gained a lot of metres as usual, probably about 600 odd. That's what he normally does.
500 and something, I think. 527.
Okay. That's a bit down on what he normally does. But no, I thought that we don't have many best players, and he'll be in our best players. And I thought that he was at least, at times, he looked like a footballer that was going to do something, and he did take them on at times. So
look, he had the most score. I am hard on him. He had the most score involvements of any of our blokes on the team. He had 4 inside 50s from his possession count. Disposal efficiency 63%. There's one or two things with Seedsman. It's either we're not using him correctly, or he's a one-dimensional player. Because I've shown, and I apologise to Razor that I just didn't have it in me to do a bloody inside 50s breakdown this week. I was so steamed on Friday night, but I just couldn't be bothered watching the bloody thing again. But I know from having watched it and taken note the first time, the amount of inside 50s Macca that lob in that 40 to 50 metre zone and come straight back out, and Paul Seedsman is responsible for a lot of those entries, and they are useless entries.
No, he is responsible for a lot of those entries. Now, it would help if he had somebody to kick to. It would help if the players had spread and given him the opportunity to kick to them. He can only do what he can do. He can't run down there and mark it himself. But if you look at it, the number of opportunities he got that he could have actually kicked to a player on his own or given them the opportunity. They were rare. They're so bloody rare. He just couldn't do that. He's doing his part of the equation. He just hasn't got the other part to give it to.
Well, look, I'll agree with you that the way in which we moved the ball and transitioned the ball didn't allow for our forward 50 or our forward line to spread. But Paul Seedsman never looks back inside the corridor. He never lowers his eyes to hit up a 20-metre target. He's always kicking the 50-metre bomb. Always, Macca. Always.
He does try the occasional short one, but I think he is more value when he does the long one if we have somebody there to get the ball.
No.
I mean, if you had a good forward line, he would be a great asset to the team. But that forward line, it wouldn't have mattered. He just couldn't kick to that forward line.
It's not the first time, Macca. This has happened irrespective, and the times that we've been effective in our forward 50 entries is when blokes have lowered their eyes, when we have turned back into the corridor, when we have changed lanes on transition, allowing our forward line to spread and get separation. The reason why blokes like Riley Thilthorpe and Billy Frampton and those blokes are ineffective is because the ball gets dumped on their head at 45 metres. They're all in the same spot because the ball has just come down the line again. They're not able to get separation from their defenders. Our transition work is absolutely horrible at times. And when we win games of football, it's generally when our transition is far more dynamic, when we change lanes, when we're moving the ball from defence to attack, when we hit up short targets and take that one extra possession in transition. Remember how earlier in the season when I was doing that analysis, how we were entering forward 50 from centre or behind centre, and when we became more effective with our forward 50 entries, it's when we were entering forward 50 from in front of centre. And what it boils down to is that we are always one possession short in our transition, and that's why the ball bounces out so quickly all the time.
Yeah, but it's not just Seedsman. It's the whole structure of the whole thing. In a team that had a dynamic forward line making spaces, I could say he could be a very valuable weapon. I don't see him. Look, I know what you're saying is right in terms of what happens in fact, but the point is that he's actually done good work getting the ball. At times, he's kicked it to where, if he's given the opportunity to kick it to somebody, he would. But he can't kick it to when there's just a big pack. That's all he can kick to.
So what you're saying is that I'm factually correct.
No, I'm not saying you're factually correct.
You said I was correct in fact.
In fact, incorrect that nothing happens out of the kick. But that's not his bloody fault. If he had a lead sitting out on its own and he ignored it, then you'd be right. But he's done his job in terms of getting the bloody ball, and he got it a lot of times. And good luck to where he's going to kick it to, because nobody made the spaces.
Yeah, 1990 Crow is trying to get the job as the stage manager for the Crowcast. Get stuff 1990. If I want to talk about Paul Seedsman for 45 minutes, I bloody well will.
Anyhow, I've been told to clock you with a mailbox.
Yeah, right.
I can't. It got stolen.
Yeah.
No, I had Seedsman as my third best.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It wasn't hard. Sloaney, we've talked about. I don't want to talk about the players too much because I'm just totally gobsmacked about the coaching and selection. And to me, what happened with the players on the weekend was a direct result of selection and coaching. And so, yes, we had players down. We had, as I mentioned when NT was on, blokes like Ned McHenry running around like headless chooks because they were out of position so often and chasing tail. I think that came down to the game plan that was implemented for this particular match. And I don't know whether Nick's came on his presser afterwards, and I don't know whether this came from, and the players need to be accountable and blah, blah, blah. That's not right, in my opinion. That's not right. The coaches brought a game style and a team that was not capable of kicking a score to win that game of football. It's on the bloody coaches, in my opinion.
Oh, well, it's on both. It's on both. But the coaches started it and gave them a task that they weren't capable of achieving. And the more they weren't capable of achieving, the worse they got.
Yeah. There's not too many others that I want to talk about. Luke Pedler, probably a bit quieter than his original game, but nice to see him still out there.
Yeah, I thought he was poor.
Yeah, he wasn't poor. He was just absent, I think.
Yeah, I expected more from him.
Sam Berry only got 3 touches for the game, Macca.
Yeah,
now, if that's no, but if that's not a waste of a lad sitting in forward pocket, then I don't know what is. Sam Berry is far more useful for our team at the moment, and he needs to be involved in more contests. And I'm 100% with you in the fact that he needs to be a bigger part of our centre rotations, as we said earlier. And surely the coaches at halftime see his disposal count and think to themselves, "We've got to get this lad into the game."
Yeah, see, it's not, again, the coaching off the bench, it was bad before the game in selection, it was bad during the game with the game plan, it was bad not spotting all these things. I mean, we're nobodies and we can spot that these players aren't in the game. You could see that Berry was just, as Surf says, he's just been wasted. Yeah. He's just sitting there, he's standing like a bloody statue, not involved in the game. And, Pedler's playing his second league game and I mean, he wasn't on the ball very often as well. And, I mean, his opportunity to get involved were very, very poor. And, it's very, very, it must be very, very disheartening for young players just playing game 1, game 2, game 3 and playing in a game of that style because they're just not really playing a game. They must start doubting themselves. They must start doubting the team. It's just not good.
Yeah, well, look, if I was a player that had been presented with that game plan against a team who are in a similar stage of their development, who are only one above us on the ladder, if I was handed that playbook and gone, "This is how we're going to play," I'd be scratching my head going, "Well, this is a pointless exercise." The coach doesn't believe in us. The coach doesn't believe that we can play our style of football and beat Essendon. We have to basically try to shut them down and keep the ball away from them. I mean, for God's sake, there's not an AFL player on the planet who would buy into that game style.
Well, that's totally true. It's totally true. I mean, and I don't know why they have so little faith in the players because we don't have the greatest team on earth, and we did have a couple of good players out, but we have taken some big scalps this year. I think we've taken about 3 big scalps.
And generally, that's been when we've played a dynamic game of football. A dynamic style of football. And yes, we didn't have Tex, but we could have attempted to play the same style of football using Fogarty and maybe bringing Tom Lynch in as the other lead up to keep that basic configuration. Instead of Tex and Fog, it's Fog and Lynch with Riley. We could have brought in Lockie Gallant. We could have brought in Braden Cook as that leader. We need to get Sam Berry more involved. Why didn't they give Harry a half on Parish and then say, "All right, Sam, now it's your turn," and give Harry a bit of freedom on the outside to try and create something? Why? What was the purpose in picking Lockie Murphy? Really, I don't know what the purpose of picking Lockie Murphy was, to be perfectly honest with you. There's so many whys, so many questions that you only basically get to the point that PJ Crows was saying at the beginning of the cast and all through the game, that it was an out-and-out tank. That's the only plausible explanation that there was. It was an out-and-out tank.
Well, if it wasn't, it was a shocking coaching performance because it looked like a tank. The selection looked like a tank, and the performance looked like a tank. And if that's not right, then gee whiz, I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
But I think you can count on Tommy Lynch being back this week too. We have to because there was no connection between the back and you're talking about Seaman, for example. Who was he going to kick to? Well, there was no connection.
Well, that's why I wanted Ben Davis to get a run up forward, mate.
And he should have been up forward, not
as a hit up forward. So in winding that up, I'm dark on the players. It's our lowest ever score, yada yada yada. But I think they were set up to fail by the coaching panel, inexplicably set up to fail by the coaching panel. I think it's dangerous for a coaching panel to send out a team like that with that mindset, because you can very, very easily lose a bit of trust from the players if you start setting them up like that. It's just a dirty weekend all around, in my opinion.
Well, I love the comment by Sir, we are too incompetent to tank. Look, I don't think that game did our players a lot of good, quite frankly, in terms of anything. I mean, if it was a deliberate tank, it was an unnecessary one, because I don't think we would have won the game anyhow. And if that wasn't a tank, and then certainly it goes back to the fact that the players did not believe in the game plan that they'd been asked to do.
I'm starting to worry, Mac, that our coaching staff at times think they're smarter than what they actually are. Because there's been a few times this season we had the Tom Lynch medical sub fiasco early in the year. We've had a couple of other weird selections, going short in defence, dropping a second key defender, etc., etc. And I'm just starting to worry that between the three of them, they're just at times getting a bit too cute with this whole thing, because we had Nix's mantra is that he wants players to be able to show their weapons, and yet I don't think he picked a team this week and chose a game style this week that enabled our players to show their weapons. Even as good as it was to see Harry stitch up Darcy Parish, it didn't really allow us to see Harry's weapons until Harry got off the chain later on in the match. But, what's Sam Berry got to do to show his weapons? What's Riley Thilthorpe got to do to show his weapons? These blokes are not being put in a position. Tom Duday has been hung out to dry this year by selection, where he's often been forced to lock down on a tall forward. Yeah, it's just starting to niggle at me now. It's becoming a trend rather than an aberration. Macca, what do you think about that?
Well, I can't argue with that because the Duday one, for example, has been a shocker in my opinion. I mean, they finally did realise it's better to bring Murray in and put Duday in his rightful spot. He got injured, unfortunately, but it would have gone a lot better if Duday had stayed on. So that was one where they at least did realise that they'd made an error. But yes, it took them losing games and giving away easy goals when they should never have done it. When people who aren't as involved as us and only looking from the outside and don't know all the ins and outs can work that out, surely with all of the facts at their fingertips, they should be able to work that out too. And as you said, sometimes I think they try to be a bit too cute, a little bit too smart. And when you do that, it always backfires. Yeah.
And I'm also a bit concerned about how they're bringing in our youth. I understand that we need experience in certain positions, and it's been great, to see Tex come on and all the rest of it. But I'll ask you a couple of questions. Have we been any the worse for Jordan Butts being our main key defender this year?
Oh no, actually, that's a massive positive. Actually,
so that's. I'll just ask you a series of questions, Mac. So have we been worse for having a young lad be our key position defender this year? No.
Fantastic move. Yeah. We're very happy with him.
Have we benefited, apart from on the scoreboard, with having Tex as our main forward?
Yes.
Do you think?
Yes, we have.
Apart from the scoreboard.
apart from the scoreboard, well, probably from a long-term point of view, no. But from the current point of view, yes.
Well, that's what I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down here, Macca. The scoreboard this year is irrelevant. Okay, it's great individually for Tex to be able to kick some goals and reinvent and all the rest of it. But what value, apart from the scoreboard, has there been having Tex as our main focus up forward?
Yes. I mean, it just as somebody has said, Firewalker says, we've wallpapered the same cracks from previous years. So, yes, you're right.
What value have we had from having Rory Sloane attend every centre bounce?
None.
Okay. So it worries me that we've got blokes like Jake Kelly, blokes like David McKay, blokes like, Rory Sloane, even at stages, Luke Brown when he was struggling with his injury. I'm sure Matt Crouch would be getting selected if he was fit. I know we can't put a team of kids out on the park. I know that. But I'm starting to worry about the overall strategy of this selection panel, this match committee, with regards to how we transition this team into being a premiership contender within the next 3 to 4 years.
Well, it's actually going to be a difficult job. It might be. I don't think it'll be 3 years. I think it will be more like 4 to 5 years because we're starting on such a low base up forward, for example.
And Hugh, on YouTube chat, I'm not slagging Tex. I'm slagging the selection policy. I'm not slagging Tex. Tex has been great for Tex and for the scoreboard this year. But
I think what you're really saying, Fian, is that while they've made the most out of some of the players this year, it hasn't necessarily helped us for the long term. But I suppose, and you're right about that, but is it best to wallpaper the cracks so that the young lads can actually get some confidence in their game and get some belief that they can play football? Or do you send out all young lads and get absolutely pantsed?
Yeah.
And then they probably don't develop into the future as they should.
Yeah.
I think young players do have to believe that there is a future in there, and at the moment and until this weekend, they obviously did believe there's a future in there. Now I'm hoping that we pick a better team, and that the lads just do try and play and give them a much better game plan to play, and that the lads can actually go back to giving 100% and 100% effort and making us look like a footy team on the up rather than one that's just a.
Let me ask you this question, Macca. If experience in our forward line was so important for the development of our kids up forward, then why wasn't Tom Lynch brought in for Tex Walker?
I don't know whether Tom's fit enough for it at this stage. He is fit enough.
He is fit enough. He's played 2 games in the twos. He's kicked goals.
Well, he would have been the logical move, I think, because he would have played a similar type of role, not as good as.
So does that tell you that it's absolute rubbish when the word "we need experience" in the team gets trotted out? Because we lose Luke Brown and we lose Tex Walker and we bring in kids. Right? It's not true, and this is what worries me. Right? There's no consistency in what's been put forward here, because Tex Walker needed to be replaced either like for like with Darcy Fogarty, or if experience was a thing. It needed to be Tom Lynch, even if it was just for Tom Lynch's experience. Riley, lead there. Billy, lead up. Whatever, So that's what I'm concerned about. There's no consistency, Macca, with what they're putting forward. They're using cliches and furfies to justify selections. Now, Tex has been fantastic, but has any of our other forwards benefited from having Tex there? Has Riley Thilthorpe or Darcy Fogarty in particular, right, benefited from Tex Walker being there? I would say no. I would say that Tex Walker thinks that Darcy Fogarty is the biggest inhibitor for him playing another 50 games of AFL football. And I would say that Tex Walker would rather see Darcy Fogarty permanently in the twos, right? He's shown that he wants to keep playing. Something's starting to smell for me.
I don't think I'd go that far. I understand what you're saying, but I also do believe that you can only put a certain amount of youth in there, and you get to the stage where
you're just missing my point, because what you said is exactly right. So why didn't they pick Tom Lynch? Why did we go with such? Have a look at our forward line.
That's why we think they would tank him.
Sam Berry, Riley Thilthorpe, Billy Frampton, Lockie McMurphy, Harry Schoenberg, Ned McHenry. That's our forward line. How many games? There's less than 100 games worth of AFL football there out of the 6 of them.
Yeah. And the sad thing is you've got Thilthorpe playing, how many games he played? About 8 or 9 games, maybe 10. And he's getting the number 1 defender now. So, I mean, forget Frampton, he didn't get the number 1 defender. Thilthorpe gets the number 1 defender.
So why would you leave Riley Thilthorpe camped at full forward all game when he's got the wheels, right? He's got the skills below his knees, and yet who we got hitting up the whole week, the whole game? It's bloody Billy Frampton. We've got another person here that wants to have a bit of a say. Animal, I'll just invite you in, mate.
Yeah, just last point is I would have put Thilthorpe onto the wing and let him have a run around there and get some confidence and get some ball.
100%. Animal, I've given you the green light there, mate, so if you just want to accept that invitation, there you go. How you going?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, good, mate. How you going?
Okay.
Nice. I'm on my headphones, so I wasn't sure if it would be clear or not.
No, it's perfect.
Clear as a bell, mate.
Yeah, cool. No, look, I just wanted to what you were saying about Tex Walker being in the team before. Sorry. I just find it interesting that you feel like there's no long-term benefit from having him playing, but I genuinely believe having him in the forward line helps everyone around him to be better and helps them to gain some experience, really. I think he's a good guy to learn from. He's a natural leader. I mean, he's shown he's been a really good leader in the past. He's won the Captain's Award.
Has he?
Well, he won 2 Captain's Awards.
Yeah, but that's not from within, though. He was known to be very divisive during 2018 and 2019. Darcy Fogarty, who should be his understudy, has not benefited one scrap from Tex Walker, in my opinion.
But do you think that's Tex's fault? Do you reckon that might be something on Darcy's end?
Well, it could be a bit of both, but has Tex made it any better?
Well, the point I was sort of trying to get to is that there's no benefit from having the team being thumped every week. They're not going to learn. I was really happy with the progress of the team earlier in the year, having even the games that we were losing, because we're fighting them out and we're showing to be like a good scrappy team. And having someone like Tex in the team to sort of inspire the younger kids to sort of dig in a little deeper has shown in the past to be super valuable. And I agree that getting goals on the scoreboard this year isn't necessarily important, but it's also important that we don't end up just getting our asses stumped every week, because if you wouldn't want to get into that rut that teams like Carlton and they have got into, where they are consistently losing it every year and just chewing up the best talent in the competition all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we want to go to the bottom for a year or two and then bounce back real quick, like Brisbane's done. Do you know what I mean? If we don't have Tex there, like, how are we going to do that?
I agree. I'm on the same page as you. Bean's right that he's not part of the future, the very long-term future.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But I also agree with you. You have to have experience around you when you're a young lad to help you develop your own game. And the more you've got, more games you play, the better you get, and the less you need of these experienced players. But at the moment we've got so many players that haven't played 20 games. I can't remember what they said it was, 10, 11,
It's a
12.
lot.
It was a
Yeah.
lot. So you must have some experience out there. I also agree with Fee that we made a mistake by not bringing Lynch in. I thought that would have been a much better.
I agree with that too. I think we should have had Lynch in there just to sort of steady the forward line a bit. And I agree with you also that Fogarty should have definitely been playing, but I don't know. I don't think we should be pulling the pin on Tex at any stage. I mean, obviously they're not going to because they've re-signed him, but I don't see anyone else in the team that is the leader that he is. Even though Sloane's the captain, he doesn't seem to inspire the team like Tex does at times.
I agree.
I agree with that, and I'm not necessarily saying that Tex shouldn't be playing. Right, what I'm saying is that the role that Tex is playing at the moment, he is the number one forward, and when blokes are coming through transition, it's not Tex's fault to a degree because that's the player he is, but there needs to be. I'm not. All I'm seeing at the moment from selection. Oh shit! I just got cramp in my leg. That's terrible. I just about kicked my computer over then. All I'm seeing at the moment is Tex remaining the number one forward. I think Riley Thilthorpe is struggling to find where he sits and where he needs to run. Darcy Fogarty has struggled for a couple of years, I think, because of Tex's presence. And let's not forget that last season, Macca, and the season before, we were calling for Tex to retire.
Yeah, but we are very fickle people, and
I wasn't 100% with that either, to be honest. I thought Tex was the only one close to doing anything for us last year, even though he wasn't great. But we had a pretty bad year, and I think he was the only person close to being a decent forward we had for the last year.
Yeah. The thing is, though, that Darcy Fogarty is going to be, 5 years into his career now by the time that Tex retires, assuming he retires after the end of next season. That's maybe even 6 years into his career. That's 6 seasons on an AFL list, Darcy Fogarty. And we've just signed him for 2 more. We've basically said to him, we want you to keep waiting. We want you to keep waiting. Billy Four Eyes is particularly pissed off with me on the chat. Yeah, we're here to criticise Billy. That's what we're here for. We're here to critique, and he didn't ruffle feathers down at the Crows in 2018, and Macca, you know this, don't you? He split the playing group, Tex Walker, in 2018.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
He did. He split the playing group. So
but that's back in the past, mate.
But I'm just responding to someone on the chat saying that he ruffled a few feathers. It was far more than that. Far more than that. Tex Walker. He split the playing group down the middle. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point any further. Animal, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we kick you out?
No, I was just sort of making that point that I think, I agree he's definitely not part of the future, but I worry that there's the chance we end up being this team that struggles to get out of the bottom 4 for a few years, and I don't think that's a good way for us to sort of bounce back. Like if the Crows end up in the bottom 4 still by 23 or 24, the future of the club could be very different to what we are all assuming that will be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, look,
I agree.
Look, point well made, mate, and it's great to have a new face coming on board, so I really appreciate you coming on. Don't make it your last time, because you made a lot of good points.
It's not my first time. I called up a while ago and told you the story about the you remember the guy who was having the date behind me, and this woman only knew sex.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So even though I'm new to your little Discord server, I'm a bit of a long time listener.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Well, good to have you back on again, and take it easy. Cheers.
All right, thanks, mate. Cheers.
Well, I've certainly split the playing group, Macca, when it comes to talking about Tex.
No, well, you also did that earlier as well with Seedsman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm highly unlikable.
I mean, somebody added seeded in text.
Yeah, but that's all right.
But that's what's what football is. Everybody has an opinion. It's like arseholes. We've all got one, and sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're bad, and sometimes we're right, and sometimes we're wrong. But
you
at least have an opinion.
But Mac, it's been the strength of this podcast for years and years and years has been the people on the chat, because
Love them.
What we do is generate discussion, and people on the chat come up with some fantastic points, and it's what makes this podcast so good. It's the reason why being able to do it live and get that live interaction with people, why it's such a bonus, and I love doing it. And I make no apologies for my opinions, but I'm happy to accept that they're probably wrong, misguided, and I bow down to the general consensus of the live studio audience chat. And you can all get stuff. Anyway, all right, Mac.
Well, one I'd probably, I know we're getting towards the end, but one question for you.
Yeah.
What changes would you make for next week?
Well, I'd definitely have Billy out for Fogarty.
Yes.
I would definitely have Lockie Murphy out and give Lockie Gallant.
I thought he was all right.
Whatever. You asked me what I'd do. Lockie Murphy out.
That's all right, go on. Yeah.
Lockie Murphy or Ned McHenry out for Lockie Gallant. Okay.
Right.
I want Sam Berry in the midfield rotations. I would love to see. Well, Tom Diday is going to be a forced change. Whether we get Josh Worrell in for him or whether we have a look at young Borlace, I'm not sure. That'll be an interesting selection. Who have we got next week? We've got who's it next week? Have a look.
I know.
Collingwood
Eagles,
next week? Oh, Eagles.
Yeah, we don't. Now, where will that be played? That'll be played over there, won't it? Because
no, that'll be home, Adelaide.
Oh, it's a home game.
Yeah, home game. Yeah.
Well, the way that West Coast play on the road, yes, it is. Because I was thinking we would be half a chance. That was before we played this weekend. I was thinking
I don't think form line really matters so much at the moment. It seems to change from week to week. So, every game's a new game.
Yeah, the other thing is, I would do exactly what you said. Not Murphy. I just think that Ned McHenry, I'd give. Well, although it was only one bad game. Look, Fogarty's got to come in. Granton's got to go out. That's a definite.
Yeah. We need to get rid of McHenry or Murphy and bring in either Lynch or for experience, if that was a thing, or young Lockie Gallant.
Well, maybe why not both?
Well, then you're dropping McHenry and Murphy. But then all of a sudden you're starting to worry. You can start to worry about your forward line pressure. Maybe Jimmy Rowe comes out.
Yeah, I thought that. I know that he hasn't been where he should be, but at least he's getting more possessions, and when he does get them, he uses them. On that game, I'd drop McHenry on that game.
All right. Well, maybe Ned just needs a little bit of a rest in the twos.
In the back lines?
Well, back lines, as I said, Diday's are forced out, so it's either going to be Josh Worrell or Borlace, in my opinion. You'll probably
How's Mackesy been going?
Yeah, okay. But Mackessy's another tall defender. Do we need another tall defender, or do we need a mid-sized defender? Because otherwise, again, we're going to be pretty stodgy out back. Tom Diday plays that intercept role, don't forget, and that's really important against West Coast when you've got Darling leading up and Kennedy strong on the lead as well. You need someone that can cut across. So I'm not sure about. I'd give young Borlace a run. Personally, I don't think he's been terrible. Apart from that, we're probably struggling a little bit down back to make too many other changes. Will Hamill worries me. Jake Kelly, obviously, we've talked about his limitations. It doesn't look like Luke Brown will come back in, I don't think. Luke Pedler probably stays in. So yeah, they're the changes I'd make, but mostly up forward. And we've spoken so much about tonight about the forward line being cooked. I think that's where most of the changes will be made with just the force change from today. A few people mentioning Newchurch, just to round that off. Sorry, Mac. Newchurch is so light and so raw, and I just don't. I think we would be setting him up. I don't think he's ready yet, to be honest. From what I've seen in the twos,
he's not this year. He's next year.
I think so. At the earliest.
What do you think of the one of the suggestions in the chat was to give Rob a rest and bring in Strawn, who apparently has been dominating in the Sandful.
Strawny did really well. Strawny did really well in the Sandful last year as well. He's not an AFL ruckman, Macca. I would much rather than give Rob a rest and run Elliot Himmelberg as first ruck, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, 1990 Crow likes the idea. He said he's earned a chance and he's gone up a level this year. He's not. Apparently, he has been.
He's not an AFL ruckman.
He played one game last year and he didn't go all that well. But I don't know. I think ruckmen are very, very scarce, mate, and very, very hard to get. And I wouldn't. I think it wouldn't hurt just to play him once, just to see how he goes.
We've done that. We've done that. He's not an AFL ruckman. You saw it last year, Macca. He's not an AFL ruckman.
Somebody disagrees. They said might as well play D-Mac in ruck.
Well, if you're going to play Strawn, you may as well play D-Mac in ruck.
Well,
Kieran Strawn is not an AFL. Well, I don't know that, but he's not an AFL ruckman.
Yeah, well,
Himmelberg can ruck. He's more mobile around the ground. Kieran Strawn will get absolutely torched around the ground. Don't forget who we're playing. We're playing Nick Nat Nui. You want to put Kieran Strawn around the ground against Nick Nat? He will get destroyed, Macca. Absolutely destroyed.
Well, I think in second thoughts, not this game.
Well, you asked about this game, so no, absolutely not.
No, not this game. No, I withdraw the comment.
If you want to rest Rob this week, then it has to be someone with mobility, and the only one we've got is Elliot Himmelberg.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't worry me later in the year against somebody else. It's even been against the Essendon ruckman, for example, this week. But Draper, who's only a boy himself, that would have been a perfect time to try it. But no, certainly not against Natanui. He would think he's having Christmas and Easter all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what do you think will happen? Do you think anything different apart from what I said?
No, I think you've probably got it pretty right.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like anyone else wants to have a say on the live studio audience. It's been a really good show tonight. I've enjoyed the chat. I've enjoyed the controversy, Macca.
That's got to have a bit of that.
Well, I don't mind it at all. Look, I have to thank everyone who's joined us on Discord and YouTube and Twitch. And who's joined us in the live studio audience. You'll see up on the screens at the moment. I've got our thanks to all the people who have supported us on Patreon. It's so appreciated, the financial support that people have given us on Patreon. It really helps keep this quality production going, Macca. So thanks to everyone there. If you want to kick in a couple of bucks, go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. Aside from that, Macca, I reckon we might be done.
I reckon we're just about done. So, on that note, out there to everybody, thank you for your comments for the night, and
much appreciated.
See you later.
Much appreciated. Thanks, guys. Good night.